Welcome everyone to Science 200. My name is Dr. Janie Sigmon and I will be helping you navigate through this course this term. I have a long history of working in science and all different types of jobs, everything from working in public health to doing research to teaching, and I have lots of different experiences that I bring to the course. I love science, especially biology, especially microbiology, and I love bringing that to the forefront. You'll see that this first week. Oh yes, we have a famous microbiologist that you're going to be learning about this week. So, and I'll be talking about him. Let's get started. So the first thing that you need to do in this course is gain access to your Sumo web text. Sumo is the company. A web text is a textbook that's online, and you will be completing assignments in this web text, and they will be automatically graded. Otherwise, you upload files into Brightspace, which is our course management system, and that's what I'll be grading along with your discussion board post. Okay, so in chapter 1, you have one chapter per week. So there are 8 chapters in your web text, and we have 8 weeks. So week 1, chapter 1. There are 4 sections in it. You need to complete those. You need to get all the way through section 4 before you can even answer your first discussion board posting, because you have to know what the topics are that are suggested for you to cover as your major project throughout this term. And that's found in section 1.4. The questions are automatically graded, and so they're graded by the textbook. Now, I'll come in every week and put some comments in, but I do not grade those. If you ever see any problem with these, because sometimes that happens, just let me know and I'll go in and see what happened, because I can fix, I can change the things, I can release them again, that sort of thing. Notice in chapter 1-1 that it tells you that you can redo your work to get better grades. And that is true, but you have to redo everything in that section, I believe. It's not just on a page, but anyway, it's at least on a page. You can't just redo one question, in other words, but you can redo work in order to get better grades. All right, you're also going to be selecting a topic, which is what I mentioned, that you're going to carry out through the whole course. You're going to be researching this topic. You're going to be thinking like a scientist and trying to figure out a hypothesis to ask, and try to figure out how scientists could possibly answer this particular question. And then at the end of the course, you're going to make a presentation about your topic, because you've done enough research to the point where you really understand it then and can present information. So here are the topics. You are not limited to these topics. I suggest that you choose one of these, but you do not have to. If you choose something else, you have to get my permission in order to use it, because sometimes they have not been science related. They might be a social science concept or something like that, but they have to be natural science related. All right, so for example, genetically modified organisms, aren't they in the news? Literally, all the time. In advertising, oh my goodness. What did I just look at the other? I don't know, some cat food. I think it was, and it said non-GMO. Oh my word, for cat food? Anyway, so genetically modified organisms, many of these have been modified to give them new traits to help in selling these particular foods to you, taking them through the process of being picked and shipped and put into grocery stores for you to choose and buy, increase in nutritional content, pesticide resistance genes. There are lots of reasons that organisms are genetically modified, especially those that are used for our food. So you might want to choose that. Electric cars, everybody knows about these now. I think my brother-in-law is on his 4th Tesla now. He loves buying and selling them. If I look at it from my personal point of view, I think they're sort of a pain because you sure can't go very far before you have to stop and charge, even at one of the fast charge stations. So I think that's sort of a pain. And I have looked into these because I'm interested in them. And what scares me is that they tell me that in a few years I have to change out the batteries, and that's between $5,000 and $6,000, and that is a huge expense. So anyway, yeah, they saved you a lot of money in gasoline, but did they actually save you money overall? I'm not sure. So there's some issues around electric cars. Commercial nuclear energy. I have a nuclear power plant that's just a few miles from my house, which is interesting. But these are becoming more popular because we're trying to move away from fossil fuels. And this is one way to do this, though there are lots of fears about nuclear energy. And are those fears founded? I'm not sure. You could find out. Genetic engineering, and this really refers to genetic engineering in human beings. This is not carried out yet in human beings because there's so many ethical issues around this. Who gets to choose which genes are fixed, changed, deleted, selected for? Who gets to choose these traits? That's a huge question. Do we just let anybody pick genes off of a menu and figure out the type of child that they want? This is a big, big issue. And so scientists, doctors are not allowed to do this yet in any country around the world. Now, it has happened once in China. A Chinese researcher brought to term two female embryos, and they are now children, and he changed their genes. He was subsequently arrested, and he has lost his ability to do any science whatsoever. So there's, even in China, where some things are allowed that we don't allow in this country, they don't allow this either. So there's some issues around genetic engineering. Ocean acidification. This is one of the consequences of burning fossil fuels. We release excessive amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and then that CO2 diffuses into the ocean water, and it is changing the pH of ocean water. And this is creating devastating effects, especially in marine life. Biodiversity conservation, this is terribly important. Human beings are just multiplying out of control. It's estimated that we'll have 9 billion people on the planet in the year 2050, and that we just reached 8 billion a few years back. So because there's so many people on the planet, we are taking over more and more habitats. We're destroying more and more ecosystems. And when you do that, you lose biodiversity. And is there a reason to have biodiverse ecosystems in the world? Maybe so. Maybe for the health of the whole planet. So that might be something that you want to investigate. Or maybe you want to investigate a small portion of that. Like, how does deforestation affect biodiversity? And then what can we do to preserve or conserve that biodiversity if we are still going to harvest forest? So there are ways to tweak some of these and get them more suited to what you're interested in. If you're interested in some particular ecosystem around where you live, we can go with a topic like that. If you do want to choose a different topic besides these that are listed here, you need to ask me. And the easiest way to do that is to email me. And I'll show you my email address at the end of this presentation. All right, so in Chapter 1, you learn about the process of science, and I'm going to talk about this on my next slide. But the example that they give you is Alexander Fleming discovering penicillin. So Alexander Fleming was a microbiologist in the 1920s and beyond, and they were using glass petri dishes back then. Now everything's plastic and disposable, but he and his lab were using glass petri dishes, and he had gone on a little holiday, so he was gone for a few days. And when he got back, he was cleaning up the lab. And what he was doing was he was dumping out the old agar out of the petri dishes so that he could then clean those petri dishes and reuse them. So he opened a plate, and it looked like this. So what does he see? He sees that there is a mold growing on this plate on the agar. And you can see the little spots. Those are colonies of bacteria. And he sees bacteria growing on the plate. But what he notices is that there is a clear zone around that mold where no bacteria are growing. So he thinks to himself, that mold must be releasing some type of chemical that's inhibiting the growth of these bacteria. And those bacteria were Staphylococcus aureus, which causes staph infections that you and I know about. So, of course, these bacteria are still around. So he took this a step further. He noticed this. He noticed that something must be going on. He thought it through, and he decided he wanted to continue to investigate this. So he identified the mold as Penicillium notatum, and then he isolated the chemical that was in the agar, and he called that chemical penicillin. Now we know penicillin, don't we? It was the first antibiotic. An antibiotic is a chemical that kills or inhibits the growth of bacteria. That's the definition of an antibiotic. Well, Fleming said, "Ooh, this is very interesting." So he wrote it up, published it. Lots of people were interested in it because so many people died from bacterial infections back then, and there were no cures, really. So he published it, and lots of people were interested in it. The thing was, though, he said, "Okay, my work is done." That's as far as he was going to take it. It took a whole army of other scientists and technicians and lab technicians to learn how to grow up enough mold and then learn how to isolate the chemical penicillin well enough so that they could expose people to penicillin. Penicillin is given in a shot. And cure them of bacterial infections. But this was a great boon. So he discovered this in 1928, published in 1929. Along comes World War II in the 1940s, and many soldiers' lives were saved, especially American soldiers, because of the use of penicillin given for wounds, post-surgical. Penicillin saved lives. And when all those soldiers came back from the war, they talked about this miracle drug that they had been given that cured them of their infections, and therefore they didn't die. But it took a whole army of people to figure out how to mass produce penicillin to the point where it could be isolated, purified, and then given to people with bacterial infections. So this is a great story about how science works. All right, then another part of your chapter, this all goes together, but another part of the chapter is how science works. Now, I know you took some kind of science class in 7th grade, and they told you the steps of science, how science works. You develop a hypothesis, you design an experiment, you carry out the experiment, you write up your results, come to a conclusion, boop, you're finished. Yeah, that's the 7th grade version of how science works, right? It's a little bit more complex than that, and it takes a whole heck of a lot of time. First of all, if you're going to go into some new field, some new topic in science that you're interested in, the first thing that you have to do is gather up background information. You have to figure out what everybody else already knows about your topic. And wow, can that be a lot of information. And how long can that take you? Years? At least months. Because you've got to gather up all this information and figure out what it all means. Then you have to formulate a hypothesis, or usually it's a lot more than one. So a hypothesis is usually an if-then statement, but you can ask it in the form of a question. So it's something that you're going to investigate. It's got to be something that you can test, right? You have to be able to design experiments to test this hypothesis. All right, then you perform the experiments. If you are very lucky, when you have taken a lab science before, you have carried out your experiment 3 times. And that is if you were very lucky. Do you do this in science? No. You carry out these experiments over and over and over and over and over again to make sure that the results that you're getting, you are getting consistently. They're not, oh, it works this time, but it doesn't work that time. No, it didn't work this one. No, not another one. Okay, yeah, it's working again. Yeah, it's working again. Nope. You've got to get very consistent results over time in order for you to come to any kind of conclusion about what is happening. You collect the data. There will be a lot of data. Analyze it. Figure out whether it is statistically sound, this evidence, or could this just be happening by chance? That's not good. That's not good for what you're going to present, right? Draw conclusions, and then you're also going to determine what are the next steps that need to be taken, you or somebody else. What are the next steps that need to be taken in order to continue this research, to continue to delve into this topic, into this question, into the future? Then you publish your work. You publish your work in what are called journals. So journals are basically nowadays online magazines that have to do with particular topics. You have editors. You have peer editors who read through your work and decide whether you can publish your work or not. And usually what happens is you send it in, you wait for a while, and you get a letter back and it says, yes, you can publish it just the way it is. That happens hardly ever, never, ever. Yeah, that really rarely happens. Usually the letter says, if you make these changes, and there are suggestions and they are really specific, if you make these changes, then we will publish. And then sometimes you'll get back a letter that says, there is no way we are publishing this. If I were to send off research to the journal Science, they would just laugh. You know, I'm not a famous person. I haven't discovered anything that is earth-shattering. I have discovered some things, but not anything earth-shattering. And so they would never publish something that I had written. The important part of this process is the peer review process. So peers are people in your same topic area, researchers who do the same type of research as you, who will be reading your work before you're published. And they decide whether what you've done is legitimate, valid, relevant, and pertinent to the issue. Is this good work? If it is not, they will tell you that. So then you get published, and then more of your peers read through your work. And they will give their opinions too. And they will tell you why they think what you did is not correct or why they think what you did is correct. Peer review is a terribly important part of the scientific process. It keeps everyone honest, but also it's not like a scientist who's trying to trick people. It's maybe you didn't get the same results that they did. So you have to both try to figure out, well, what the heck is going on then? How is my experiment different from yours? What am I finding that you're not finding? That sort of thing. So peer review is terribly important in science. And we'll be doing just a little bit of that in this course. All right, then what do you have due this week? You have discussion board postings. If you've ever taken a course at SNHU, you have done discussion board postings. So your initial post, which is one you're writing about your experience, your information, that is due by Thursday night before midnight. And you're going to talk about the question that you have chosen to investigate, or topic that you're investigating. So be sure and look at that whole chapter before you do this. Introduce yourself. Tell us something about you. If you have a nickname, tell us that. Where you live, what your major is, what your career goals are, what your life is like. Do you live on a farm? Do you have pets? What are your hobbies? Do you like to go hiking? Do you like to watch horror movies? Well, I love horror movies in October. I just do. And what? So tell us something about you so that we can make connections. You will find students in this class that you have connections with. And hopefully you have some connections with me. So introduce yourself and what you hope to learn from the course. Now notice that I put here, this is 1 to 2 paragraphs for this section. This is not one sentence. That's not really describing anything to us, right? One sentence, yeah. So 1 to 2 paragraphs. And what's the definition of a paragraph? At least 3 sentences. Yeah. Answer these questions. What field of natural science interests you and why? And oh, of course, mine would be biology. Biology, chemistry, physics. Oh gosh, can I remember them all? Geology, astronomy, environmental science. Did I leave anything out? I don't think so. Anyway, the natural sciences. Which ones interest you the most and why? And is this particular field related to the issue that you chose? So if you picked astronomy because you're interested in outer space and you picked genetic engineering, they're pretty opposite, because astronomy is way out there in space and genetic engineering is way down on a molecular level in cells. Very, very different. And then you also need to respond to 2 of your classmates. So you're going to respond to what they have written about their ideas. And these are due by Sunday night before midnight. Include what you have in common. Make a connection with your classmates here and with me. But make a connection. And do you agree or disagree with them? Do you have the same interests? Do you have the same hobbies? Do you live in the same area? These responses need to be substantive. So once again, a paragraph or 2. Oh, that's a picture of a puffin that I took when I was in Scotland in May 2023. Had a wonderful time there on a nature tour. That's the one thing that I absolutely wanted to see. And I got to see a whole island full of puffins. All right. You're also going to write the assignment 1-4 is about your topic. And so you will be doing some of that work in the textbook and then uploading a file into that assignment 1-4. Use the guidelines and rubric, which I'm going to mention in just a second, in order to complete that assignment. Watch my videos in the announcements every week. By Monday at 12:01 a.m., I will have a new set of announcements popping up on our page, and I will include a video. Watch my videos. Now this one's going to be, it's going to be like 25 minutes long, which I know that's a chunk out of your day. But hopefully I'm explaining things to you, the science. I'm explaining your assignments to you, giving you hints and tips, and just encouraging you in general. So please watch my videos. I think that they're important. Usually they're shorter than this one. So watch my videos in the announcements every week. Deadlines are important. The most important deadline is Sunday night before midnight. So everything is due by then. But if you've got discussion board postings due in a week, I forgot the weeks now. The initial post is always due by Thursday night. Everything else in the course is due Sunday night before midnight. Follow the guidelines and rubric for each assignment. So guidelines are basically the instructions to tell you how to do something, how to do one of these assignments. What do you need to include? What's the form? Are you going to be writing a Word document? Are you using outline form? Are you making slides? So what's the form? What's the format? What information do you have to include? That's the guidelines. The rubric is your grading sheet. So that shows you what I'm looking at when I'm doing my grading and what I'm looking for when I'm doing my grading. That's a rubric. Read the feedback that I give. This is especially important for the topic that you will carry out through this whole term, because you can improve on your work from week to week by using that feedback and making changes. Read the feedback. Label everything, no matter what kind of file, and label this for yourself. Do you know how many times students have uploaded the wrong file because it just says Science 200 on it? Yeah, that's not real helpful. Label everything. Label the class, my name, the date, what the heck this is, and the name of what the heck this is. Assignment 1-4. Okay, what is it? What are you talking about in this paper? Dates also help. Your name helps. Label everything, including your file names. When in doubt, ask me. You know, the reason that I am still teaching, even though I'm retired, is because I love to teach. I love to make connections with students. I love my science. So I am here to help you. If you need help, I am here. No matter how much you're struggling, no matter what you're struggling with, whether it's how to do an assignment or the science behind it, whatever, I am here to help you. So when in doubt, ask me. If you're in trouble, if you're having issues of some type, any type, please just let me know. m.sigmon@snhu.edu. That is my email account, and I will post it absolutely everywhere. So all you have to do is click on it and get to me. With that being said, I am looking forward to meeting you all through the discussion board this week, and I hope that you have a wonderful week, number 1.